Right. Says we're live. Let me see if that's happening. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Jessica Judd. I am the Managing Director of Deborah Slater Dance Theater in Studio 210, and I am here today with our Studio 210 Summer 2024 residents and our mentor, Deborah Slater. Yay. So thank you for joining us. You can ask any questions you would like in the chat as we go along, and we will get to a point where we will be reading those and asking the residents those questions, and they will give you answers. What we're going to do today, this is a conversation. It's part of the Studio 210 residency. Our residency provides resident artists space, time, and mentorship to develop and explore new performance material. Today's conversation is an exciting look into the creative process of these two artists, which culminates in performances on July 26th and 27th in person at Studio 210 in San Francisco and live streamed to YouTube. And in just a moment, I'll put the ticket link in the chat. And for now, I'd like to turn it over to our mentor, Deborah Slater, to introduce herself and tell you a little more about the program.
Okie doke. Hi, I'm Deborah Slater. The Studio 210 residency program was created about 12 years ago with Miriam Wolodarski, who was working here then. And we decided that, we didn't have money, but we had space. And so we wanted to be able to offer people something that we knew was in very short supply and disappearing. And that the kind of conversations that one got to have in college or when you were in training programs disappeared once you graduated and you were out in the world, and that it was very helpful to have somebody to talk to about your work. So the mentorship program not only gives live performances, we also provide photographs, professional photographs, and professional edited videos so that they can take these and then apply for grants and have the kind of competitive looking materials that really helps people raise money. And the other thing about this process is that these are not necessarily finished products. This is an artist being given the time to explore. And it could be anything. It could be fragments. It could be one idea gone into deeply. It could be a whole range of things. It could have 1 million people in it. It could be a solo. So we have had everything in here. We've had Bharatanatyam. We've had, I was thinking about Angela Tertano, what she did her work was kind of a Latino fusion with feminist stuff in it, and the Bharatanatyam had feminist overtones in it. People come in with really interesting twists on what their own experiences are. I've had theater people in here working on plays. We had a theater group that brought musicians, and so there was live music being played while the play was happening. That was very interesting. And then there's modern dancers who come in and do modern dance kinds of things or something completely conceptual and weird. One woman took over the studio down the hall and had a whole marriage ceremony that the audience participated in and got to drink and have a party as part of the show, which it was a trip. It was very funny. So anything's possible. This room is now nicely outfitted with state-of-the-art lighting and shiny new chairs, which we're very excited about. We're going to debut this weekend. And I think we should just get on to the work of it. I've been doing this for a lot of years. And it's very exciting to me to actually be able to talk to people about stuff that I've learned so that we don't all have to reinvent the wheel. It's one of the things that I think of this as, once you know something, it's really wonderful to have somebody to give it to, to be able to answer questions for people. So on we go.
Thank you, Deborah. So now I'd like our residents to have a chance to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about who they are as artists and their artistic practices. And our residents are Kat, Lynn, and Nico Maimon. And Kat, would you like to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone, whoever exists. I'm Kat, and I'm based in the Bay Area. I love to do contemporary-ish dance, experimental-ish dance, and we've been having a lot of fun doing some choreography as well. I feel like as an artist, most of my pieces come out of curiosity and play. Honestly, it's just derping around and seeing what happens. So there's that. And then I guess the other aspect about stuff that I like to make tends to be that I like to make all of my own soundscapes. I did a lot of classical music growing up, and I feel like it's really music changes so much of like what you're watching, and so I like having control over that, even though I don't really know how to use Ableton, but we're learning. So there's that. Um, but yeah.
And Nico?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Nico. I use she or they pronouns. I'm also based in the Bay Area, and I was born in Mexico, grew up in LA, and I'm like a queer performer, creator, drag artist, and organizer. And I feel like a lot of the like organizing, education really feeds into my work. And I'm always thinking about like the commodification of art and what it means to make. And that actually had me putting off making my own work for a long time because I was like really faced with this, like, what does it mean to sell this like art form? And I'm just now coming to terms with like what the role of art is in this like revolution and just wanting to have the chances to make things. And so I'm really grateful for this opportunity, which feels like that like reciprocity, kind of like giving back. But I'm also really inspired by like pop stars and rock stars and like the drag and the queer nightclub scene, and really like references from the early aughts when I was like a teen, as you'll learn more about. So that entertainment and weight, and it's all like informing what I do. And I also like this stemmed from a funny idea, and also love to just work in really open and like playful places and then see what comes out of that too. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's start with Kat. Can you tell us a little bit about what you are exploring in the residency?
Yeah, so the piece that I have kind of made is called The Point, and it's just about points. The point of art, what is the point? I don't know. Pointing, I think I really like puns, and so we tried to bring that into this some. And I think that the whole thing is basically just like as many possible references to the word, the point, in as many different contexts as I could make it. So it's somewhat chaotic, but it's been very fun. Because I think I think people often go into like seeing an art piece and you're like, well, what was the point of that? And so that's what inspired that. Is there a point? I don't know. Not my call.
And Nico, did you want to tell us about what you're exploring? And then Deb, after that, we'd love to hear your thoughts about your exploration with both of them and their projects.
Yeah, it's funny. This idea came from a film that came out, I think, in 2003 called 13. And it's this kind of like grainy coming of age of these like 13-year-old girls, and there's like a lot of darkness, drugs and race and whatever. And Kim and I jokingly one day were like, we resonate with this movie so hard. Like, what if we made 13 the movie, the musical? And it was kind of this like joke we kept telling each other whenever we'd see each other, like the musical. And then it became this serious thing of like, I actually have so much to reflect on in terms of my own adolescence, and I don't see a like queer, like POC coming of age, like woman coming of age story very often. And I've always thought about like, yeah, like my life in like this memoir way. So this is just like scratching the surface of my coming of age, my relationship with Kim and her coming of age, in our like respective identities, and some of the struggles with like drug use and family stuff. So it's really personal, but also kind of very early aughts, 2000s, kind of hopefully silly too in its own way. So yeah.
And I've had the pleasure of seeing both of the, as finished as they are to date. Kat's yesterday and Nico's today. And they are as far apart as pretty much you could put two different things on stage, which is fabulous because I had no idea how they would end up, either one of them, but they're just different planets. And it's going to make a really interesting evening to watch. And one of the things that I want to say, I think, Kat, we've talked about this a little bit, is that there's a lot of pressure on people if there's somebody of color or a specific group to do a piece about their group, to make that the focus of their work. And, you know, Kat was talking about wanting to make these things, this other kind of work that's entertaining to her and funny. And there's a lot of work that's coming out right now where people just want to laugh because the world is so challenging that their political response is to doing something funny. And the piece is very funny. And I think it's interesting to me in some ways. It's political just because it's funny, just because that's a reflection of the time that we're in. And so that it's been really fun watching both of these pieces, and they're both pieces that can be developed or become a partner piece with another piece like it. And as always, I am really impressed with how seriously both of you have taken the time that you have to build something that is actually a performance. It's already at performance level. They don't have to be. The things that people can just show fragments, they can show bits and pieces. They can talk if they want to about what they're doing. But in this case, there are two completed pieces of work. And the hardest part right now is figuring out who goes first and how that sets up the other piece and how it sets up the audience. So that's something I'm mulling right now.
Great, thank you. So I wanted to ask some questions of the residents about the experience of being in this residency. And one of the first ones I'm interested in, and either one of you can start, is how have you found having this residency, the time, the space, the mentorship? How has that been useful to your process as a performing artist?
I can go. Kind of like what you were saying, Deb, is I haven't had this like kind of focused space since I was like studying in school and had all of the resources thrown at me and all of the stage and lights and shows. And I've had like little projects, but to be able to land in a space for an extended period of time already is like pretty magical. To just come here and it's like very private, and to be able to really drop in and hold like the history of this space has been really, really nice. And then like adding the layer of like having someone, you know, have eyes on your work and talk through ideas. So a lot of the work I've made has been like film or solo, and it's been like fully produced by me and very like in my own head. So this feels like the first time almost outside of like drag that I'm like putting stuff out and receiving stuff from beyond my own head. So it feels really special in that way, and like a big turning point, like a major incubator. So I'm just like super grateful, and I feel like it's such a springboard into where I'm gonna go after this. So it just feels really cool. Yeah. And it's not so much about the show for me, which has been clear this whole time. It's like this residency isn't about that, but I am super excited to like share stuff to a group of people, and then also take their feedback and like just keep more eyes, and also try to have fun while I'm doing all that.
I think one of the goals ideally is that you get to ask the audience the kinds of questions you don't get to ask an audience, because they're actually going to sit there and talk to you. It's not like 15 minutes and everybody goes home. This is an actual conversation that's as long as the show itself. Because I think it's interesting for people to understand how things are made and they never get to ask real questions. And in this, we're very clear about the fact that they're helping finish the product. They're helping push the ideas forward, letting the artist gets to ask them questions first if they have specific things they want to have answered, and then the audience gets to ask the artist questions. So the conversations often are between members of the audience, between the audience and the people on stage, and it can be the composer if the composer's there. And in Kat's case, it'll be talking about, well, both of you have made your own. I have to say, both of these people have made really great sound scores for their pieces that they didn't have someone else make. And I think that's a really big deal and a really interesting thing that both of you have done that isn't always the case. It's very cool. Miss Cat?
Yeah. Well, I have to second everything Nico has said. I feel like I kind of fell into the world of Bay Area dance, not really on purpose. And, coming back into dance after college and being like, wow, it'd be really fun to make things, and just being like, wow, there's nowhere to do anything. The space costs money, and like, if you want to have collaborators and dancers, you should ideally be paying them. And all of that is just so draining, especially if you like don't have any work that you could show to any grant or any opportunity. It's like such a chicken and egg problem. I feel like that this residency really helps solve. Having a consistent space to go to, and just having that consistency is super helpful. And for me, I probably have ADHD, so having a show at the end is super, super helpful, just to have like, a deadline and to get something done, and to really think about that whole process. And this space is quite magical. I feel like it is, like Nico said, like there's so much that has gone on there. And especially since it's so private, it's not like one studio in ODC, or, like it is in a different place where, somebody might walk in on you, or like somebody, it's just, there's just something about that building and the studio that I feel like allows me to relax more and to play around with things and just like focus in a way that would be harder elsewhere. And even if I were to rent space elsewhere, like I'd be stressed because I'm paying so much money for it. And then that would like lose its, like then you're not like, I don't know, creativity has to come from like a little bit of boredom. And so you just need time and you need space to work. And this is the longest process I've ever done. This is the longest piece I've ever made. Like, I mean, out of 3, I feel like respectable pieces that I have made in my life. So this has definitely, I've been super grateful for the opportunity to spend time in that space and play around.
Great.
Thank you, Kat. Oh, Deb, go ahead.
So that was the driving force for this, was to give people a place to work. But it was also really set up with what Kat's talking about. We were very clear that the person who was renting the space, it was their room while they were in it. If we ever had to come in, we always asked permission and let people know. And if they said no, we didn't come in. And there are very few times when there are interruptions. It has made the room have that sort of quiet, intimate space. It's yours when you're in it. And so much work has been made in here. I really believe that there's some sort of juice in the walls that just holds people when they come in. And people
I'm gonna miss the trombone player that lives like down the hall or something.
the new guy, he's new. He hasn't been here that long.
Oh, really?
Oh, I think it's wonderful. I mean, I'm very happy. The more artists in this building, the better. So, yeah.
Yeah. And also, I forgot to mention, just having somebody to talk to about making work through the whole process is so important. I feel like it definitely keeps me accountable and, honest. I can't like be like, oh, I'm too busy this week. It's just gotta happen. And that's been really helpful. And just, yeah, talking through any like little road bump and having another perspective from somebody more experienced has been really, really helpful.
Great. And that, I have to say, I set up the 1 week thing. I didn't, when I started doing the mentoring, I didn't do it that way, but I realized that it was that thing of being accountable to someone else. It was like having someone to exercise with. You had to show up for them, and it made people commit to themselves. And that's the part that I'm interested in. I don't care if you don't have anything to say to me, but something about the fact that we're going to have a conversation. Everybody always gets some work done in preparation.
Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, the ADHD, that really helps. Important.
Absolutely.
I'll put that in the project description. Any specialized. Yeah.
Helping artists with ADHD.
Fantastic. So my next question is in this process now with the pieces you're working on and working in this way, in this room and with Deborah, is there any new insights that you found about yourselves, your work, the project throughout this process? Any new insights about that?
I can go first if you. Well, I think for me it was a lot about solidifying the process that I suspected that I had, if that makes any sense. The other pieces that I've made have been on like pretty short timescales, like 2 weeks or like 4 days. And, you know, I'm like, I think this is how I work, and having the space and counting the rehearsals, and I think that this is like probably this is the first time I've done like a full run through more than like a week before the actual show. And that was also really interesting. Like, oh, if I have a longer piece, like we're gonna need more time to have it ready. Like I can't just like finish the piece like right before, which historically has been what happens. Like I've had a piece that like I don't think we ran through the whole thing straight through until the actual show or a tech run through. And so just having to adjust that mindset and like learning how to deal with a longer piece has also been helpful.
You've also mentioned something about you were sort of hesitant about seeing yourself as a choreographer, and that in this piece there are actual choreographed sections. And I think, I don't know how you view yourself now that you've actually been making some set choreography. Has it changed your sense of yourself as a choreographer?
Yeah, I feel like being a choreographer is like a thing. That is I am a choreographer, but I definitely feel like, yeah, I think it was a really good time to practice sort of like that confidence in like having set movements instead of only relying on like improv scores, and like really thinking through what the movements mean. Like I don't think I'm quite where I want to be with
Yep.
movement choreography yet, but it's definitely like I definitely feel a lot more confident about it now than I did like 2 months ago.
It's another quiver. It's another arrow in your quiver of arrows.
And I wanted to interject because we do have a couple audience questions that are germane before we hear Nico's response too. There's a question from Jen Norris. It says, it sounds like Kat's piece is a solo and Nico is working with another performer, and I know named Kim, and I know one of those is correct. But Kat, do you want to talk just a little bit, clarify a little bit what you're doing in your piece?
Oh, yes, my piece is a trio. I've just coerced my friends into doing it with me. And they haven't had as much of a say. So I mean,
Yeah.
we all explore together and play around. I feel like one of the reasons I have been so into choreography is just it's kind of an excuse to hang out with your friends. Then we go out for dinner after, and it's very fun. And I'm like, but for the past 2 months I haven't seen anybody else but them. So there's also that.
And they're also very engaged in it. I noticed after the end when we were talking about all the various ideas and, how would you work this and would you want to add this and is this part working? Everybody had opinions, and it was very clear they were honored that.
Yeah, my other two dancers are Addie and Alessia Eflemova and Addie Jessica, and they I literally could not have done this without them. Or Amber Gott, who is now in the UK. But yeah, I could not do anything by myself. Like I I'm always asking them for validation or for, new ideas and things. And so it's very much a piece that could not have come out of any other set of people, aside from me and my collaborators.
That's fun.
Fantastic.
I'm the reverse, where I collaborated with Kim Ip, mostly through video, and Kim is also in Europe, so my work will be like solo. Video is a collaboration. The space will be a solo.
Yeah, the live performer is solo, but
Yeah.
the other performer is in the movie all the time.
Yeah.
So she's present, and she's present on all the sound recording, but she's not actually in the room.
And it's a similar thing, Kat, where like Kim is one of my best friends, and getting to like spend all of that intimate time together is just like such a bonus, because we have so much fun together, which hopefully will come across. But I also trust her so much, and like I need, that reciprocity is so nice and important.
Yeah, I love all this silly inside jokes that like always come out of any rehearsal process, and you're just like, there's like references. It's just many, many bizarre sentences that are being uttered in hopes of describing a piece, or like a movement. It's like, what is gophers? Exclamation points. Like, anyway, some of them are not appropriate, so I'm not going to say them, but
Thank you. And I fully understand. Nico, did you want to talk a little bit about any insights you've had as a result of this process so far? I mean, I know we still have one more week, but what have you found going through this?
Yeah, I actually have a pretty big discovery in that. Opposite of Kat, I feel less interested in being a choreographer, and I'm finding more of this devised theater, and I'm interested in all of these different medias, where I'm less, I was just less drawn to the actual choreography bit and more drawn to like pulling a bunch of things together. And that's like a new thing for me. So like having Deb with all of like the theater and like the voice, and then like there's a lot of talking, and that was just me kind of like following where my intuition wanted to go, but like with really little, like I don't really know what I'm doing, but this is the medium this needs to exist in. So now I'm learning maybe that I'm like also a little more like theater and like producing stuff. I'm still interested in choreography, of course, and there are some choreographed moments, but also as like a performer, I'm mostly an improviser in like the dance world. So I think I'm still like, I still have those feelings around like choreography, and maybe that's like a future me thing to discover, but it's cool to find out things about yourself. And also, Kat, like you, most of the work I've made before this has been really last minute. Like I'm a big time procrastinator. My friend and I performed something. It was like maybe like a 10, a 12-minute piece that we made one day, like the day before, and then like performed and had like singing and all of this stuff in it. And it was fine because we were on the same page about it all, but there's so many things that more time would have been like so wonderful. And that's what I'm getting to experience here, is like actually going back and not just like first thought, best thought, perform it. But having the time to really, turns out I don't always have to procrastinate if I have like, the structures are supportive. That's not the
you have Deb.
like the pressure
She has
too.
deadlines.
Yeah. It's been so interesting.
Well, and it's also
Yeah.
interesting to me that if you improvise most of the time, this is a piece that's really, it's personal. The material is really personal. So you want to be honest about what you're doing. You want to present it as accurately as you can.
Yeah.
And you're moving into the theater of it. And it's been interesting watching like what's theatrical and what is the person who's on stage. Can that be a different persona than the person who's in the film? Can she be another part of the person's brain? There's just a lot of ways into this thing that she's built that has both herself on film and herself in front of the film. And that was a very interesting conversation to me about, who is this person who's on the stage? And I mean, you're clearly a really good performer, so it's interesting to see how you're going to digest your own material to do this. And I think doing personal work can be very challenging because you don't want to just talk about yourself and it's boring and stupid. It's how do you make it transformational in some way so that other people can hook their stories into your story, that they'll have something to walk away with. So I think you're doing a great job. It's very interesting, but both of them are doing really really interesting work. And I kind of knew that the pieces would come out like this. I think given the descriptions you both gave, you've really actually done what you set out to do. Some people like leave it behind, you know, they get in here and go, that didn't work, it's out. I'm going to go over here. This is more fun. Or I'm too scared to do that. I'm not. I had one person who had this really great thing that she proposed and then never did it because she was too scared to do it. And I felt bad because she was very talented. And I thought this would be a killer piece. But I mean, it was an interesting piece. It just wasn't that. So I feel like you guys have been really true to investigating the thing that you set out to investigate. And both of them are hard. Both things that you're doing are really hard. I think in Kat's case, doing something that's funny is really, really hard. And
Well, I don't know. I'm very serious, so
I know you
a
are.
very serious piece,
God.
actually.
Like, it's not
they-
funny.
As they're going, she likes puns. They're looking at her, going, she likes puns. That's a pun.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoy that, and I really love hearing about the insights about yourselves as choreographers. And I know both Deborah and myself have been at this longer than you two have, because we're older. And so it is interesting to hear. I'm always interested to hear how the residents discover different things about the process, their own choreography process. I wanted to address one question in the chat, and then we're going to ask you another question. Is just someone asked, how often do you meet with Deborah? And I believe we are doing once a week now, correct? Yeah, so, and this is just for everyone out there, if you're interested in the residency, one of the things you get is weekly meetings with Deborah. And in last cycle, we had a guest mentor of David Herrera, and he met with everybody once a week as well. And so that gives everyone a chance to really be in consistent contact and have conversations about their work on a weekly basis.
If somebody wants me to come to rehearsals and, you know, they get to choose whether they want to have a live conversation or they want me to digest something they've sent on film. I mean, there's lots of different ways that the actual conversation gets set up and how it's done. And I'm more than willing to come in and watch as well as do the Zoom phone calls. And I do like Zoom because it's as close to, you know, being there with another person. The phone is fine, but I really like looking at facial expressions. We still can't interrupt each other well enough, but you know, it's closer.
It's closer. So this sort of leads into the next question for both of you, what do you want the audience to walk away with when they're going to come in? And I know, Kat, that your piece, I mean, you are addressing this kind of head on with the name of your piece and the theme of your piece, but what do you both want people to walk away with? If you know that, or if you don't know that, it's okay if you don't know yet, but what are some of your thoughts about that?
Because this work is so personal, I've been really going back and forth with like, who is this for? And I think I've recently discovered, maybe like in the last hour, that like primarily hoping to resonate with people who have like a similar experience, who are like, you know, in that like age range of like growing up in the early aughts, which brings me to think about everyone else who isn't that. Like there are a lot of cultural references that I'm like, not everyone will get them. So what does it mean then to like open up my coming of age? And I think it's just like, talk to Deb, just wanting like a lot of transparency to be able to like think of your own adolescence as you learn about mine, then also kind of to feel some of kind of explore some of the like teenage extremisms but maybe without the layer of shame that was there when we were teenagers, kind of be able to look back and be like, this was so valid. Like this was all valid as like our teenage selves. So some resonance, maybe some uncomfortableness, and maybe some like shame, like a releasing of shame. Well, that's a lot, but we'll see. Yeah. Yeah.
I think for me, I don't have anything that I really want the audience to get. I feel like it's more of a curiosity of what they will see. Like I'm not trying to say, and I mean, okay, I would like them to get at least one joke, but like other than that, you know, yeah, I feel like this was a piece made like with my friends for us, and I'm curious whether people get it or not. But I don't have anything that I want them to like come away with. I don't have like a message.
And one of the things I want to say to both of you is that's something that you will understand as you make more work, why you make what you make. Like, do you make it for yourself or do you make it for an audience? When I make a piece, I'm never thinking about the audience. I'm trying to understand the subject that I'm dealing with. And then at some point, I know I'm going to put it in front of an audience and I'm curious to know what their response is, to see if I've succeeded in making it intelligible to someone else. But yeah, I think every choreographer has a different approach to what they do. There isn't any right and wrong about your relationship to the audience. It's really what speaks to you while you're working, what's driving you to do what you do. And I think sometimes that's hard to know. So that's the thing to figure out as you're going. At some point,
Yeah.
you'll be able to look back on your work and go, oh, look, that subject line keeps coming through. This particular image has showed up in every piece I've made. Who knew? And there's things like that that are really interesting after you've been doing it for a while. Or you may get to a point where you go, I am really tired of doing it this way. I'm going to try something completely different that completely disrupts me and see what that does. So, I mean, you're at the beginning where you have to sort of figure out where you stand in order to launch yourselves out.
Yeah, and I would say I have never been more surprised sometimes by audience reactions that I did not expect, which I think is a very fun part of also the residency conversation that you will have with the audience as we go into this, because people are going to pick up on things you had no idea, I think, that you thought they would pick up on, and completely miss other things that you thought were right in front of them. So I always find that very interesting, and that's just an interesting approach, insight as an artist, just in general, is how does the audience see the work, and what does that mean? So Deb, I just also wanted to ask you, what is your thoughts on the process in this residency so far with both of these artists, and what with Kat and Nika, what they've been doing? That's a very free-form question for you to answer. But...
Well, it's been interesting. They've both been really good about giving me material to look at. We worked on this. It looks like this. We got this far. I'm going to just show it to you and then you can tell me something. And obviously very different approaches. I mean, I do not want to give away anything of either one because they're so different from each other, and there's surprises and I don't want to give them away. But I really, I think that there's been, it may not feel like it, but there has been a clarity for both of you in the working process, sticking to the idea that both made it challenging at times and made it really good. They both have really done an investigation. And I know in Nico's case, this is the beginning. This is a rough of an idea, because what she's trying to do is really a dramatic, it's a play of sorts. And if it expands into a larger piece, there's a lot of components that have to be considered, because she's got the writing that's carrying stuff, the video that's carrying stuff. Are there other people in it with her? You know, what else is in this to make this piece? And is this moment that you're circling around the moment, or is it a series of moments? I mean, that's something I was curious to talk to you about, that I thought about when I was wandering the halls. In Kat's case, I'm curious to know what the next thing is that will fascinate you. You know, what your next cycle is. I'll be curious to see what that looks like, because I feel like I watched some of the early work. I got a sense of how you, now that I know how you work a little bit, I see how that happened. But I also feel like this has, because you had time, what'll happen if you give yourself time. I'm hoping that that's something that you like, having more time.
Yeah. No, this Monday I was like, wow, I could really use more time. So
But I think one of the things I want to say in Kat's work is it's been really fun watching these other people enter into her world, just wholeheartedly go, yep, I'm there with you. And actually, Kim Mipp is that way too. I mean, 100%. I didn't feel like they were dragging the performers along with them at all, which has been wonderful. They really have people they're working with who are 100% moving it forward. So as always, these pieces are so different from anything else that's been in here. They're really not like anything else that's been done. So it's thrilling to me, because I'm entering into worlds I don't know anything about. I don't work like this. And it's really curious to see how it comes out. But they both really, I think if nothing else, you have a clearer sense of yourselves as directors, because you have to make choices, you have to make decisions. And I think in this case, especially for Kat, you have time to consider your decisions. It's not like, oh, this is due tomorrow, so whatever we do is what we're doing. You've really kind of gone in and out and looked at things and talked about, oh, we took this out, we put this in. And I think that's when you're making a piece like you've made, which is all these little fragments that have to be assembled. It's clear that you spent some time thinking about it. And the sound is very interesting when you talked about working with, she's built this whole score out of found sound stuff online. And some of it is very funny. And knowing how long it has to go on, I think things like that, that's been very interesting to see how you made those decisions. I think that's been really good. It's really, they both worked really hard. I mean, these pieces are really, it's a lot of work.
And I have a follow-up question about that, because you mentioned working with your collaborators, and it sounds like this may or may not, it might be new working in this way with collaborators in this way. So I'm curious to hear from both of you, if working with your collaborators as you've worked within the residency, was that a newer process for you, or was it a revisiting of an old process? And what do you think about that moving forward?
I never want to work alone.
Mhm.
I don't want to be, I'm lonely. I don't want to do it by myself. That's so sad. So I think in my favorite pieces that I've made in the past, all two of them, they've always been with other people, or almost exactly the same cast. Like Alessia, and it was Alessia and Amber that I worked with really often. And actually, I think I did tell Deb this, but I was like, wow, I'm really afraid to work with anybody else. I'm scared.
Yeah.
So this has also, it's been, it's been great to work with Addie, who is newer to my choreography and work. So it was a very good broadening of horizons there. But yes, collaborators, very important. Don't want to do it by myself. That's not fun.
Yeah. I kind of have always worked with like one other person or by myself. And I'm kind of like, I kind of tend to isolate and feel comfortable in just like working completely alone. But I'm finding that like the growth edge of that is like having people to work with is so actually helpful, because like I said, you're like getting out of your own head. So historically I've always been like solo or duet, and this is also a duet. And I think for me, it's always also been like a dear friend as like the duet collaborator, and two is kind of like a magic number for me. And I've in other processes, like I've collaborated with Kim where it was her residency, but never where it's like I'm bringing her into mine. So that switch was really interesting where I'm like, I'm inviting her here. I want to like have a plan for her and not just have us like mess around the whole time, because that's fun and we could totally do that. But I guess like learning how to be the one that's like holding the space. And then in my other duet collaborations, like with my friend Annalise, we're also planning this like 2-man show. Is we've both kind of done it in a really ragtag, like casual, like meet in a park kind of way. So where we're both like not really holding the space, and maybe we nap for an hour and wake up and then talk about, making a show and do it in an hour. So it's been, yeah, just this switch into like there's more structure and I'm holding more. And I'm also like scared to work with more than one person, one financially, because I want to pay everyone, but that would be an interesting, like, what does it mean to do 3, 4 people and then hold that or collaborate in that way?
And I want to say to
Yeah.
both of you, because you both are idea people, the one thing about bringing other people in is that their minds are different than yours.
Yeah.
And I find, and why I've always worked collaboratively, is that I'll say something and then someone says something and it triggers a train of thought I wouldn't have had.
Yes.
That being pushed outside of my logic and my thinking, and that disruption. I'm a big fan of disruption. I think it's really important. I think it makes you flexible in the world, and we're going to need it in our lives, period. But in terms of the creative process, people come in with ideas and you go, I don't know where you got that from, but man, that just moved everything around. And it's really wonderful. It can be hard. I mean, you got 6 dancers in a room and 27 ideas. It's like, oh my God, how do you figure this out? But it happens. I mean, I started out as a soloist and then kind of, well, I'll play with this person. And then all of a sudden there was a group of people who said, well, we should be a company. And I'm looking at them and going, oh, no, 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 no. And then that was that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Gonna
Oh, Nico, go ahead.
I'm just thinking because I technically credit the cinematographer also with like co-directorship. So that was like the first time there was like a third eye. And as she was filming, I was like, yes, I'm so open to what you're seeing and what you're telling me. And then also like having my partner look at stuff more than she ever has before and actually bring up a lot of things that like were unexpected. I was like, okay. And then I was like, let me, take now these like 4 so contributing directors, and it totally like it's the sounding board I never knew I needed, but it's like
You
so
don't have to work as hard as you think you have to work. I mean, there are some people, writers, who sit by themselves and that's all they want to do is live in the world that's in their head. But I don't know, there's something about what we do because it's in the body. I don't know, it makes sense to me that we have conversations, even to make a solo, to see what someone else sees, because you can get lost in your own perspective or get bored with it over time. So it's a wonderful, I mean, it comes back to community for me. It's that way that we engage in the world, and it's something that we're all missing a lot of right now. So even the fact that we're going to make a live performance that will have humans sitting in the same room with us. I mean, they talk about the kind of electrical charge. They're beginning to document kinesthetic kinds of connections that they haven't been able to document before. And I'm just like, there's a reason this has been happening since the beginning of human beings. So now we're going to understand it a little bit, but it's just like, yep, pay attention. We actually do need to communicate with each other. And this is a really lovely way to me that goes behind the intellect, goes I don't know, into the body, into the soul.
Thank you. We're very close to wrapping up, but before we do, I wanted to ask if there's anything else any of you would like to share with us about what we can expect at the residency performances happening once again, July 26th and 27th. Ticket link is in the chat for anyone watching. But is there anything else you want to share about what you can expect? Or Deb, if you have anything to say about that too.
I'm curious to know if there were any stumbling blocks where you just thought this is too hard. I can't do this right now. I mean, that maybe not be a fair question to ask at the end, but I'm imagining someone who doesn't make work, who thinks you just come in and dance and then there it is. Or have you learned something you didn't know? We kind of answered that earlier.
I mean, for me, I feel like it's like beginning and end are kind of like the hardest somehow, and the middle is feels so free because there's time. But I mean, I came here alone the first time and just like laid on the ground because I was like, what am I doing? And I was just like for an hour or something. And I was like, there was this like guilt, like I should be dancing, I should be warming up, but like I couldn't move. I was just like,
I've slept a lot in that. Yep.
and then at the end now I'm like, there, you know, Kim's gone and I'm not at the point where like, I can't do this, but there's just like so much big dreaming that I know I'm not getting to, but I'm trying to be really like okay with that and be like, that's the point, and I want people to come in at this point already, and like I'm so eager to hear from audiences at this exact point, even though I'm like, oh, but there's so much more I want to do. Like there'll be time, and trying to just stay patient.
Well, that one of the things that we're talking about the end of it, she was like, well, this is the end, but I don't want to leave the stage. And so we kind of landed on the to be continued.
Yeah.
To be able to actually say that.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
It's just that kind of freedom in it. You don't always get to do that.
I also did a lot of laying on the floor. So that's also a thing. It's very intimidating at first. And like I honestly thought I thought my piece was gonna be like 9 minutes long. I was like, I feel like there's not enough stuff. I feel like there's a lot of just tedious work sometimes, you know, it's like cleaning stuff, it's piecing things together, making sure everybody knows what's going on or what you're trying to do. You have to make like a spreadsheet of cues and things like that, and then just iterating over and over again, like trying to get through the piece and being like, okay, we need a cue for this, a cue for that, like this is unclear. And it's like a 20-minute piece, which is a really long time. So just doing it, yeah, I was kind of surprised at the inscalability of like it's never felt so like large of a slog. It's not a slog because it was really fun, but you know, like there's just a lot to do and check off when we're like moving the music stuff around and making it fit to the choreography and dance.
Well, my question for you is, do you think you like having this much time, or would you rather you didn't?
No, I like the time. I think it was a fun challenge to make something longer. I thought it would be a lot harder to get to that length, but it is that length. And no, I do wish I had more time because I really want to do more and to explore more ideas and polish it more, but it is what it is.
Well, the thing is, you've made this structure, which is you can view it as a beginning. You know, if you know you're going to make more work, maybe this is the beginning of something, or there's something that lives next to it that it inspires you for the next thing that you do. That's an interesting thing to figure out. Again, that's one of the things that you have to learn as a choreographer is like, well, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do with this or next to this? Or am I done and I'm starting over someplace else? This has left me somewhere that I want to go forward from.
Yeah.
Be very curious to see how it feels to you after you've performed it and gotten audience feedback. I'd like to have a conversation when we're all finished about where you are in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all. I feel like that's a good place to end. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing the works presented next weekend. And just a reminder to everyone out there that we will be showing in the studio at Studio 210, limited seating. So please buy your tickets online in advance. And we will also be live streaming. That is ticketed as well. And that ticket link is embedded in the ticket link I put in the chat. We hope to see lots of you there Friday and Saturday. And thank you all for tuning in. And thank you, Nico, Kat, and Deb, for talking about all this today.
Really good, you guys. Really good.
Thank
talking.
you.
So thank you all. I'm going to end the stream.
For the next number.